Greetings, ladies. Over the years of counseling many spouses, couples in distress, I've noticed something kind of interesting, a commonality, if you will. Many times, one or both spouses will have sort of a negative thought spiral down in their relationship. And let me say two primary ways that this happens. Either one, the husband or wife does something and the other spouse automatically jumps to the most negative, unflattering conclusions about the motivations of that spouse. They jump to the most unflattering, negative conclusions about the motivations of that spouse. Or in communication with the spouse, they kind of read between the lines and again jump to these negative conclusions about what that spouse is really saying. So let me just give you three thoughts here then on how to fight against this nasty tendency, which again just kind of creates this downward spiral in your marriage. First, we have to take every thought captive. We have to realize what the enemy is up to here. The enemy is goading us constantly, trying to create this friction, trying to get us to bite on this bait that he's dangling in front of us saying, oh, you know what he really meant to say there. You know what he's really doing. You know what he's really thinking. Trying to get us to bite on that so that we will have this really negative outlook toward our spouse. We must be wise to the enemy's tactics. That's 1 Peter 5:8, right? Be self-controlled and alert. Your adversary, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion seeking someone to devour. Resist him, standing firm in the faith. So we've got to be alert when those negative thoughts, those negative conclusions start rolling through our mind. We need to be alert in a second and go, okay, wait a minute. I'm not necessarily going to fall for that, right? Okay, but let's talk specifically about these two things that we tend to do in relationships. First of all, let's talk about that negative conclusion about what I think that my husband just said. So let's say he makes a comment about something I'm wearing, and I immediately in my brain think that I heard him say, "You're ugly." Now he didn't say that, but in my brain I'm taking it, I'm just reading between the lines, coming to the most negative, unflattering conclusion about what he really said. Or maybe he made a comment about, is the kids' homework done yet? And you say no. And maybe he goes, oh. And you're like, I know what he means by that. See how we read between the lines? I know what he means by that. He's saying I'm a bad mother. I'm not doing a good job as a mother. Now, did he ever say that? No. So what you do in these situations where you kind of catch yourself maybe jumping to a negative conclusion, how about you do this? You ask a follow-up clarifying question. You say something like, I feel like you just were communicating to me that I'm a bad mother. Is that what you meant to say? A lot of miscommunication, misunderstandings could be cleared up just by asking that clarifying question. I felt like I heard you say this, but is that what you meant to say? Yeah, clarifying questions. So good. Okay, the second spiral down thing that happens is when we assume bad motivations of our spouse. So how this would look is like, let's say your spouse has struggled with pornography, you thought they were done with it, you catch an open screen when you're walking by and it looks like something pornographic and you're just like aghast. And so in your brain, you're kind of telling yourself the most negative things about this, making the most negative assumptions about his motivations. Well, he's just a big jerk and he doesn't really love me at all. That's what you get from this. Instead of training your mind to think of the most generous explanation. The exact same event happens. You walk by and see that there's a screen open and it looks like it's pornographic and you're like, okay, I'm not saying that that's not bad, of course, but you choose the most generous explanation, the most generous motivation. You know what? Man, I think my husband's still struggling with pornography. I know he didn't do that to hurt me. I know he loves me. He must really have an addiction. We need to get him help. Look at the contrast there. One just jumps to the negative, the worst assumption about his motivations. He's disgusting, he's a loser, and he doesn't even love me. Or the most generous explanation of his motivations and everything is like, I know he didn't intend to hurt me. I know he loves me. He must really have an addiction here. We need to get him help. See the difference? What a stark contrast. A couple of thoughts that might help you avoid those downward negative spirals in communication.